Hello friends and welcome back to part 17 of this series where we'll be creating an Instagram clone in FlutterFlow and Supabase. So in this video, we'll be working on our post detail page, specifically the like function for our app. So to do that, we need to actually implement a new table. If I go to my Figma database architecture, you see that I have this post like relation table with two columns, the post ID as well as the liked by column. So let's quickly go ahead and do that in Supabase. So I'll go over to Supabase and I'll create a new table. I'll give this table the name post like relation. I'll disable row level security. And what I want to do is, let's see. Okay, so for this, we need the ID as the primary key. We cannot set the post ID as the primary key because the post ID can be duplicated among other rows. So created that, we can also leave that for now. But here we need to specify the post ID, which is of integer 8, as well as liked by. And this will be of type UUID. Oops, wrong one, UUID. Get rid of this. We also want to add some foreign key relations. So the table that we want to reference first is our post table. And the column that we want to reference is our post ID. So our post ID in our current table will reference the post table's ID. And if the post is deleted, we want to cascade. So we can save that. And now we also want to add a foreign key relation for our liked by column over here. So this will reference our auth schema, and the table that we want to reference is our users table. So we can choose liked by for this column, and we want to reference our user ID over here. For the action, we can also set both as cascade. We can save now, and we can save this table over here. Alright, cool. So now we have that. Now we can go back to our FlutterFlow project and let's try to implement it inside this post component. So we have to go over to our post component, and this is where the user will be able to like or dislike the post. And this heart icon is where the user will be able to like or unlike a post. So instead of an icon widget, FlutterFlow actually has a more useful widget that we can use for this particular functionality. So let's delete the heart icon for now. And inside this row, let's search for toggle. So FlutterFlow actually has this toggle icon. So you can bring it to the front of the row. And for this toggle icon, if we scroll down over here, you can see that we are able to toggle between two icons. So that's exactly what we want. So the first icon that we can set is heart. We can choose the empty heart. And for the next icon over here, we can choose a filled heart. Oops, it looks like I mixed up the order. So this is when the icon is disabled and this is when the icon is enabled. So when the icon is enabled, this should be the filled heart. And this should be the empty heart. Then we can go ahead and change the icon color as well. You can also use this switch to toggle between active state as well as the disabled state. So you can see that when it's active, it will show the filled heart. When it's not active, it will show this disabled heart. And we may also want to change the icon size a bit. So let's give it an icon size of 28 for both. And you can see now that we have to set this toggle value over here. If not, it will give us an error. So for this toggle value, it has to come from a component state or Firestore state. But since we're using Supabase, we have to make a local component state. So let's quickly make a component state called is liked. For the type, it will be a boolean, which is either true or false. And the initial field value, let's just give it and set it as false. So then we can go back to our toggle icon, and now we can set this toggle value as our isLiked component state. And you can see that the error is now gone. Alright, so now we have to add the action for when the user actually likes the post. So with toggle icon selected, we'll go to the action flow editor, and we will add a conditional action. So for this condition, it will be our component state. So it will be the isLiked component state. So if the post is currently liked, then we want to do something to sort of make it such that the post is not liked anymore. The first action that we can do is to set the component state, to update the component state. So we want to update the isLiked component state, and we want to toggle its value to the opposite value, which will be false. Then we can do the same thing inside this other branch over here. So we paste the action, and it will toggle the... So if isLiked is false, then after the user taps on it, it will toggle it back to true. Alright, but this is not enough. We need to somehow store which user has liked which post and store it in our post-like relation database over here. Alright, and I just realized that I forgot to do something very important, which is to, because I created a new table in Supabase, I have to go to settings and integrations, and I have to get schema once more. So remember to always do that, and yeah, don't forget because it can cause a lot of trouble in the future. Alright, so back to our component over here. Alright, so now let's deal with the case when the user has not liked the post and isLiked is false. So when the user clicks on that heart icon, the user is liking the post. So what we want to do is we want to add an action here, and we want to search for Supabase. We want to insert row. We want to insert a row into the post-like relation table, and we want to set some fields over here. So we don't need ID, we don't need created at, but for our post ID, we want to set it as our post details ID over here. And for our liked by, this will just simply be the authenticated user's user ID. And actually we want to insert the row before we update our component state. So we just move this action up before this. And now when the user unlikes the post, we want to delete the row from our post-like relation table. So what we can do is we can add an action over here, search for Supabase, and we want to delete row. For the table, it will be post-like relation, and we need to get matching rows as well. So we need to add a filter to delete the specific row. So for this, we need to filter where the post ID is equal to our component parameters post details ID, and as well as where our liked by is equal to our authenticated user's user ID. So we can close that, and we also want to delete the row before we update the component state. So we move this up. Alright, and that should be it for our toggle icon over here. But there's one more thing that we have to do, because currently, if we go to our post component here, our isLiked boolean component state is always set to false initially. However, a user may have already liked the post and gotten to another page, but when they come back to the same post, they will see that their like is actually gone because this isLiked component state variable is always set as a default value of false. So that is actually not what we want. We want it to reflect the state where the user left it in. So how can we do that? Well, we first need to somehow get access to our post-like relation table. So to do that, we can open the action flow editor for our post component, and on initialization, this means that whenever the component is booted up or is created, we will add a new action, and here we want to query Supabase rows. For the table, we are querying our post-like relation, And for the filter, we want to get where our post ID is equal to our component parameters post details ID, as well as where our liked by is equal to our authenticated user's user ID. And we want to give it an action output variable name. So for this, we can just give it liked row. Then now we want to set a conditional action. Alright, and now we want to set the condition to check if this row exists. So if this query returns an actual row, meaning that our user has already liked the post. So we want to check for a condition, and here we don't need to add a condition. We can directly just access our action output liked row, because here there's the available options to check if it is set and not empty. So basically this condition just checks if the user has already liked the post. So if the user has liked the post, then we want to set our component state, our isLike component state, and we want to set this value to be equal to true. If not, then we want to update our component state as well, and we want to set our isLike component state to be equals to false. So then we can close this over here. And now we should be done with our like functionality to allow our users to like a post. Alright, so now we can go ahead and try testing it out. Alright, so I got test mode loaded up, and if we try to like the post over here, you can see that unfortunately we have an error. When we click, the heart gets filled momentarily, but after that it suddenly disappears. If we go to our Supabase and refresh, you can see that no new row was also inserted into our post-like relation table. So let me check. The problem likely lies in our toggle icon action itself. So if we go to our toggle icon and we open our action flow editor, let's check the flow once more. When isLike is true, then it'll go to here. When isLike is false, it'll go insert a new row and update the component state. Yes, and I see the problem here. Actually, if we go and search for FlutterFlow toggle icon documentation, if we go to here and we scroll down, you can see that by default, FlutterFlow already handles the toggling of the state variable from true to false and vice versa whenever the button is clicked. So actually, we don't need to update our component state anymore. And if we update our component state over here, after it's toggled, we will toggle the value back to the opposite one. So we should delete this actually. And we no longer need to update our component state. Instead, we just need to insert as well as delete the row. Alright, so we can go back and reload our app one more time, and it should work perfectly now. Alright, so fingers crossed, let's see what happens when we like this post. Yes, now the like stays over here, and if we go to our Supabase database and we refresh, seems like nothing is happening here. So if we go and check, it could be a problem with this, because since FlutterFlow already automatically toggles the state, that means we need to switch these two states as well. So I'll cut this action, paste it here, and I'll cut the insert row action and paste it here instead. So now let's reload test mode one last time, and hopefully all works well now. Alright, so now let's check when we like our post here, and then now we go ahead and check our Supabase table. Yes, so finally it works. So you can see that now a new row has been inserted here. If we unlike it, the new row should disappear from our Supabase table. So if I like this cat post and I like this cat post, and now if I go to, let's say, a profile page or a different page, and then I go back to that same post, you can see that it remains liked. So the state is actually saved in our Supabase database table as well. And likewise, if I log into another user, So let's try logging out and then logging into another user. I think I need to create a new user. Yep, if I log into a different user, you can see that the posts have not been liked. So if I like this and I like this, and I go out of the page, you can see that the post that I liked still remains liked by this user. And in our Supabase table, you can see that the liked by field over here, and in the liked by column, the UUID is different for these two users. So yeah, great. That shows that our like functionality now works perfectly. Alright, so now that our users are able to like our posts over here, we'll be seeing how we can reflect the amount of likes in the UI over here. And we'll be doing that by using something called Supabase triggers. So I hope you're excited to learn more about Supabase triggers, and I'll see you in the next video.